We've got the Port of Darwin, we've got the Sky News Chinese spy ship, and of course, Donald Trump's Liberation Day. Donald Trump's tariff fest, his global trade war, a 10% wipeout on world stock markets, gold soars through $5,000 Australian for the first time ever. Everybody's setting up their little gold funds. It's all happening. Donald even hit the herd of McDonald Islands with 10% tariffs. These are remote Australian territories down in Antarctica, way inhabited by a few penguins, a couple of volcanoes. The memes were flying thick and fast. The penguins of Heard Island swiftly called an emergency cabinet meeting and are expected to sting Donald with retaliatory tariffs. Those penguins, like Peter Dutton, they're promising to release policy details shortly. Did the Donald just use ChatGPT to calculate his tariff program, or was this a deliberate initiative to stop Australian businesses from re-domiciling to barren volcanoes in the middle of nowhere to escape the tariffs? Well, in her bid for another scam of the week, Susan Lee, she led the charge, blaming Albo for Donald's tariffs.
Isn't the US to blame for increasing tariffs in the first place?
The Prime Minister is to blame for not doing every single thing that he could have done. Look, the US's policies are for the US.
Even though every country in the world, even volcanoes, were hit with the tariffs, even Israel was Albo's fault. Apparently, we're in election mode, even more than ever. Of course, Donald hit the mic to say on Thursday that I'm open to tariff cuts in return for phenomenal offers. He thinks he's on a reality TV show, the old Donald. It's actually a freak show. And here, if the coalition didn't have the media on its side, it would be a shambles. Because you see, there's a little word which plagues all the coalition's policy ruminations. That little word is uncosted. This is the uncosted scam. You can say what you like, but you don't say how you plan to pay for it. Coming soon, though, we hear. While the leaders gallivant about hugging babies and shaking hands and wearing hard hats and high-vis gear, the coalition election narrative is quite simple. Albo is weak, outsiders are bad, Peter is strong, leadership material. And from the Labor Party's point of view, its perspective is that the Libs are knuckleheads and Peter Dutton is like Donald Trump. As Trump worsens in the world's esteem, massive protests on at the moment across America. Tying Peter Dutton to Donald Trump is quite a good election strategy. Peter's espousing this week cuts to education, like the Donald. It's the last thing they did in the US, cuts to education for Americans who elected the Donald. Cuts to the ABC, of course. Cuts to the NDIS and 40,000 public servants, 45,000 public servants. Replace them with PwC again. Consultants cost $20 billion in 2022. But to the substance, the coalition policies are uncosted. Not only all their policies, but their biggest one, nuclear. $600 billion. Where is that going to come from? Of course, it'll never happen. It's just the scammers, we've always said. But this is probably what the media should be reporting, rather than Albo falling off a stage, or whether he actually fell off a stage or not. Albo denies that he fell off the stage. He slept and recovered quite nicely. He should have come up with some line about when you fall off, you get back up on the bike again. Peter, of course, brought it up as a sign of Albo's weakness. So this is important, this nuclear spend, because it's their largest spend and it's uncosted. Where is the money coming from if it ever happened, if it ever were to happen? That's what the media should be focusing on. And where are they getting the tech from anyway? The best tech's Chinese. Have they begun exploring these kinds of fundamental questions? No, but China. Our favourite scam this week was, our personal favourite was the magnificent Sky News Chinese spy ship. Yes, exclusive, they bellowed. A spy ship made in China. Sorry, made in the Sky News studio out at Ryde, where the news goes to die. This one's going like hotcakes, this merch. Were they here, these Chinese, to cut our submarine cables? Leave us without the internet? We'd have to get Elon's satellites then, wouldn't we? Were they here to prepare for the invasion? No, it was just a bunch of marine scientists, mostly Chinese and Kiwis, doing climate stuff. They'd been around New Zealand for weeks before suddenly they were noticed by Sky News as the Chinese spy ship. Great stuff. Bunch of world scientists, Denmark and other places in Europe as well. But plausibly, look, everybody spies on everybody. That's what submarines do 99% of the time when they're not at war. They spy. Everybody spies on everybody. It's no biggie. Anyway, the second favourite has to be another Peter Beauty, the renationalisation of the Port of Darwin. Now, the coalition flogged this Port of Darwin to landmark a Chinese mob and 99-year lease in 2015. And one of the ministers, Andrew Robb, even got a cushy gig for $900,000 after pulling off that deal with Landmark. How's that for a job for the boys? Anyway, then of course, having sold this port to the Chinese, they then blew up relations with China and cost us billions in wine and lobster revenue, ruined our relationship for a while, let the Pacific expand their network in the let the Chinese expand their network in the Pacific. Now they want to renationalise it, take it back, because that's strong. It's anti-Chinese. Well, probably another thought bubble, but, because you've got to do things like explain why you've done this deal and then probably end up in the High Court trying to take it back. Anyway, it's just a bit of noise. But if they wanted to renationalise something, they could start with the transmission infrastructure. The gas pipelines that crisscross the country, half owned by the Chinese. They own a lot of land here, a lot of assets in Australia. A lot of the electricity grid. Why not nationalise that? Do Aussies a favour. Check out our last video on this. We just tried to tell the story from go to woe about what's happened, because nobody seems to understand it. What's happened with this electricity, this power bill thing? Why they're so high? Who's making the money? Very complicated. But the stakes are high with the election coming, Trump blowing up America and the world, threatening to bomb Iran, stepping up its genocide in Gaza, 35,000 US 2,000-pound bombs, giving them to Netanyahu. This is our great ally and friend, the land of the free, where they're locking people up for free speech, deporting people. Albo's handle it quite calmly, I think, really. Okay, they could do with some significant policy, a bit of vision, a bit of boldness, and they could do with a foreign policy, like getting out of AUKUS. They could fix the defence, which is a shambles. We're just not battle ready. Talk to Rex Patrick about it. He's a former serviceman. We just cannot defend the country because there's been decades of rubbish procurement and leadership. But Albo has stood calmly firm on three areas where the Trump admin is piling on the pressure. He says that he will not bow to demands to weaken or disband the PBS. Very important, the PBS. Australia's biosecurity, or, the cattle issue, or media laws. Our 10 cents worth here is that he could accommodate them, use it as a bargaining chip, by dumping this ludicrous media bargaining code, which effectively just props up Murdoch, Nine and Kerry Stokes. It's a subsidy for the old fossil media mates. That's all it is. It doesn't make any financial or economic sense. It's anti-competitive. We don't benefit from it. It gives nothing to innovators or to new media. Zero logic. We'd have a chat to Albo about this, but of course we're not a media influencer. We can't get a one-on-one because we're not an Instagram influencer. If we were, we'd be invited. Sit down for little chats with Australia's ministers, Tanya and Albo and everyone. One-on-ones. That's what you get if you're a media. If you're an Instagram influencer, check what they did with the budget. But we don't get those invites because we're busy surviving getting sued in a government cover-up. But we should really think about, if we get the time, expanding into cooking and fashion tips. Maybe tips on how to dump your boyfriend or a bit of hairstyle advice. Maybe they can get a one-on-one with Australia's leaders. Become an Instagram influencer. One can only dream. Well, thank you, everybody, for helping us get to 100,000. We're going to get a plaque soon, apparently. That'll be good. Not a lot of money out of YouTube. They're pretty tight, but it helps with the distribution. So check out our last video on the electricity market. What we're trying to do during this campaign, because there's so much distraction and nonsense, is go to some of the really substantive issues and try to distill them and stay on the news as the news develops, because there's a lot of it. particularly with the trade war and what's going on geopolitically. Check out our stuff on the University Zionist stuff by Wendy Bacon and Yaakov Aharon. That was a great yarn. Harry Chimay on the website. Brilliant piece on Australia's housing affordability crisis. Thank you for your support. It's been really precious during this difficult time this year. It's been a shocker being attacked by lawyers. So thank you for that. Please like, share and comment, hit the bell, subscribe if you can, and we'll catch you on the next round.